Province. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Welcome, Minister of Finance, Allen Banda, Member of Parliament for Chimama Constituency in Kitu.
Good morning, witnesses. My name is Womba Songwe, under Committee Department.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Our witness, Minister of Finance, good morning and you're welcome. I am Chilimboy Elijah from the Office of the Clerk of National Assembly. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, you may go ahead. You may go ahead to introduce yourselves. Thank you.
Good morning and thank you, Chair, and thank you, members of the committee. My name is Akapelwa Imwiko. I am Acting Permanent Secretary for Economic Management and Finance, but substantively I am Director Economic Management from the Ministry of Finance and National Planning. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Msadabwe Chulu, Principal Planner in the Ministry of Finance and National Planning.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Chelamba Sela from the Ministry of Finance and National Planning.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Abdul Ali from Budget Office, Minister of Finance.
Madam, you didn't tell us which department you are. Your mic. You can put off your mic.
I'm from the Economic Management Department.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Zahari Kamboni, Member of Parliament for Kalomo Central and the Chair of this committee. Keteso, my honorable members. As we are here, you know, it's a mini parliament. So I now give you Cap 12, which gives you the immunity so that for as long as what you are telling us is the truth, you will not be taken to court or demoted or even cautioned, but for as long as what you are telling us. But the same Cap 12, if you don't tell us the truth, it might end up tying you. So you take us through your paper, preferably 15 minutes, and thereafter you can touch the main areas, and thereafter members of Parliament to seek clarification or ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Chair, and again the committee. Chair, your committee did received a notice from your committee where we took note that you decided to undertake a detailed study on the state of foundational literacy and numeracy levels in primary schools. As part of the consultative process, we took note that the Ministry of Finance and National Planning was requested to prepare and submit a written memorandum on the same. Specifically, we were requested to speak to the current levels of foundational literacy and numeracy in primary schools. We were also requested to speak on how well teachers are trained and supported to teach foundational literacy and numeracy effectively. We were also requested to speak on the availability and quality of teaching materials, as well as comment on the urban-rural disparities in terms of equitable provision of resources, deployment of qualified teachers, and also to speak on challenges, opportunities, as well, and also make some recommendations on the way forward. Chair, we first speak on the current state of foundational literacy and numeracy in primary schools. I draw your attention to page 2, section number 2. Your committee, Chair, may wish to note that the statistics that we have reviewed show that foundational literacy and numeracy in primary schools as at 2025 was below the set targets. Specifically, when you look at grade 1 numeracy, we note that the target the actual performance was 52% of learners having attained the required competences against a target of 60%. So clearly that was below target. When you look at grade 4 numeracy, 54% of the learners attained the required competency against the target of 60%, again below the target of 60%. When you look at grade 4 literacy, 55% of the learners attained the required literacy competence compared to the target of 75%. Clearly, again, below target. So that's the observation that we made, and again, our data is based on what we compiled during the budgeting process, where we consulted the relevant ministry, and that's what we captured in the yellow book, our budgeting yellow book. Moving to page 3, we speak on how well teachers are trained and supported. Chair, you may wish to note that teachers receive both pre-service training and in-service professional support to enable them to teach foundational literacy and numeracy at early primary school level. Pre-service teacher education programs offered by colleges of education and universities include components on literacy and numeracy, as well as child-centered teaching approaches. You may wish to note, Chair, that evidence from national learning assessments progress reports indicates that the learning outcomes in foundational literacy and numeracy remain below the desired levels, suggesting that the depth and practical application of such training has not yet yielded the optimal results as desired. To address these gaps, government has supported targeted in-service interventions. Notably, we have done the catch-up program and includes the adoption of the teaching at the right level approach, which focuses on strengthening teachers' capacity to deliver basic reading and numeracy skills through learner-centered methodologies. Chair, if we go to the next page, which is page 4, we just want to highlight at the top there that we noted, however, that the coverage remains uneven across the country, and this is something that needs to be addressed. In addition, Zambia is implementing what is termed the End Learning Poverty for All. This is a campaign that reflects a high level of policy commitment to prioritizing foundational literacy and numeracy. We have also prioritized alignment of the public financing, budgeting to evidence-based interventions. Chair, when we move to section 4, where we are asked to speak on the availability and quality of teaching and learning materials used for early grade reading and mathematics, the committee may wish to note that government has continued to provide teaching and learning materials in primary schools to support foundational literacy and numeracy. According to the 2024 Annual Progress Report on the implementation of the 8th National Development Plan, the pupil to textbook ratio in early grades stood at 5 learners per textbook, in line with the target. So apparently this was in line with the target, and we're happy. We took note of this, but we still want we wish to desire to improve this ratio as we move into the next planning period, which will be the 9th National Development Plan. Moving to page 5, there was a request for us to speak on the urban-rural disparities in literacy and numeracy outcomes, as well as the equitable provision of resources and deployment of qualified teachers. Chair, your committee may wish to note that the literacy and numeracy outcomes reported within the national planning and budgeting frameworks are presented largely at aggregate national levels. The ministry, therefore, has not carried out an assessment to determine the urban-rural disparities in learning outcomes, as well as the distribution of teaching and learning resources and deployment of qualified teachers. This is something that we hope to do, and we've highlighted this in part of our recommendations going forward. In terms of challenges, we have outlined some challenges there. The first challenge is the variance or variation in the implementation of teacher support programs across districts, which have been inconsistent. Second one is the limited integration of disaggregated education data. Back to what we are saying, to say it would be good that we had disaggregated data, because with disaggregated data we could then start looking at ways to having more targeted interventions in terms of resource allocation. The third challenge is the effectiveness of teaching and learning materials depends on classroom practices. We think this is a challenge because every classroom has its own practice, and this varies across schools and affects the translation of our resources into improved learning outcomes. We did identify opportunities as well. When you look at page 6, under opportunities, we highlight there that 1, continued government commitment to financing primary education provides a platform for strengthening early grade learning outcomes. We also believe that existing national planning and budgeting frameworks can be further leveraged to promote results-based financing. The availability of education sector data offers scope for improved integration into the financing and budgeting process, and we really think if we can enhance that, it will allow us as we plan and budget. Number 4, under opportunities, is we're just highlighting there that evidence-based literacy and numeracy interventions can be scaled up and better aligned with resource allocation decisions. So we think that, again, the data is the most critical area of improvement. With data, we can plan better. Chair, in terms of recommendations, your committee may wish to note and consider the following recommendations. 1, we recommend that we see consistent teacher support. There is need to ensure uniform implementation of teacher training and professional support programs across all districts across the country. We are also saying there that there is need to enhance the use of location-specific education data in planning and budgeting to inform equity-focused interventions. We are also recommending that there is need to strengthen classroom practices and ensure that teaching and learning materials are effectively used to improve learning outcomes. In conclusion, Chair, your committee may wish to note that the Ministry of Finance and National Planning remains very committed to supporting efforts to improve foundational literacy and numeracy in primary schools through effective financing, coordinated planning, and strengthening of monitoring activities. Chair, as I conclude, I also just wanted to make comment that in our documentation, we hadn't gathered some data which we managed to bring with us, which I don't know if we have shared with the Chair and the committee. We wanted to share some data with you.
Yeah.
With your permission, maybe we can distribute this to the committee. This way. Okay. Just pass them out. As it is being distributed, it's just an extract from our output-based annual budget yellow book under head 80, which is Ministry of Education. Is that the one? So that is one of the documents that we are sharing for your ease of reference. We are also sharing a more detailed budget allocation from 2022 to 2025 for early childhood education and primary education. And what we're literally just observing in this data is that the allocation to education, and especially early childhood education and primary education, has been increasing over the years, again indicating that government has placed priority on supporting this education, specifically this segment of education. You will note from 2022, you would note that total budget releases for early childhood education, for example, the total amount was 157.7 million. This figure has increased to 2025, where the figure is now 781.6 million, clearly indicating the increase in the amount being allocated to early childhood education. The figures are broken down between personal emoluments, which are the salaries, and non-personal emoluments, which is everything else. So the big chunk goes to the payment of the salaries, but both figures are showing an upward trend. And Chair, I think this again, we were just submitting for ease of reference for your use as a committee as you review this important topic. With that, I submit and welcome any clarifications.
Thank you very much, honorable members. You take note of the questions honorable members will ask, then maybe we can ask them. Yeah. Anybody with a question, honorable members? Honorable Banda, yes, please.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Ministry, I'm looking at page 7 here, where you say effective use of teaching and learning materials, and also I'm also looking at the teacher book ratio, where you believe 1 to 5 is okay, and yet we've been interrogating some experts in the teaching service who believe that 1 book per 5 students is equally impossible for them to actually follow through. I can also just imagine myself what sort of desk would accommodate 5 students. So meaning that teacher-pupil book ratio is completely off. What we need is funding. That's why your ministry is here. 2, learning materials, that's learning materials. Another thing is, I know that the budget for 2026 towards the Ministry of Education was actually dropped, I'm sure by maybe 1.5%. From last year, which was 14.5%, now it's 13%. And yet I know the recommended allocation should actually be 20%, though we're very far from the 20%. Having said that, Ministry of Finance, it shows that with that kind of budget allocation, it doesn't matter with this other page that you've given us, which shows some improvement, but so long as that we're running below 20%, and especially on the ECE, means that we'll never be able to actually provide enough materials. We won't be able to actually acquire enough competent teachers. And we know that you've introduced the MAT tax, which is you'll be getting 1% of revenue. So meaning that government will probably make more money this year, compounded with the export of copper. We know that production has gone high. So do you intend, by all means, but perhaps just to increase the allocation to Ministry of Education by maybe another 3-4%, so that now maybe trans to 16%, so that we can see a major shift and a major allocation to ECE. Chairperson, thank you.
Thank you very much. Another question? Honorable Mutu.
Thank you. I think it's an addition. A witness was here indicating that there's a challenge with the provision of teaching material in the local languages. They had run some adverts, but there's been no response. Meaning, the ministry has to do the job of producing the material. So for them to produce this material, the funding, the current funding for 2026 will not suffice. So, like the Honorable Member has indicated, this is another challenge that the Minister of Education is going to face in 2026 to provide the material. So as a ministry, is there any open window to assist the ministry so that they are able to come up with this material, which is greatly required for teaching efficiency? Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Honorable Duck.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Minister of Finance, we do allocate funds to Minister of Education, but in most instances, witnesses have come before us telling us that your monies will reach the ministry or the intended departments maybe in the last quarter of the year, and for them to implement what they have budgeted for, it becomes a problem. What measures have you put in place in this 2026 that all the monies will come on time and all the programs like for curriculum and these other things, they can be prepared on time? What measures have you put in place? Thank you, Chairperson. I submit.
Yes, I'll summarize mine as well. You see, Minister of Finance, there are countries that don't have copper, that don't have minerals, and they have been able to shift from being third world countries to developed countries like Singapore by investing in the human resource. We have the minerals now. We are not yet a developed nation. Why? Maybe because the human resource we have is not full-fledged to even add value to all the natural resources that we have. And so when you invest in education, in the human resource, you achieve all it needs. These funds we have, the technology is coming from education. All this technology in military warfare everywhere is coming from education. And we are unable in Africa particularly to convert our own natural resources to add value. People produce cocoa but they can't produce chocolate. They will just produce and we're ripped off because we have not invested seriously in our human resource. Now we are, in fact, your statistics of saying 5 pages each textbook, I've just heard it from you. All the witnesses that came, it was either 20 per one student, minimum 10. I went to a school in Kalomo Center, Bwacha, right in town there. And I went to a catch-up class. So there were about maybe 80 students or 70. But the textbook I saw were only possibly 4. In the literacy, there was no textbook. Only the teacher had. And that's the correct situation there. And then what shocked me was, out of 1,500 students, 700 were in catch-up, which means they were moving from grade 1, half the school. From grade 1 to grade 5, they couldn't write, they couldn't read. And we have the problems of textbooks. When I went to school myself, grade 1, we had more textbooks than the students. What are you doing? Because even the curriculum here came to say, without materials, there's no learning that can take place. What are you doing as Minister of Finance to make sure that these challenges are met? You have said that we are aligning finances, we are aligning them according to competence-based learning. But this money is not enough. Have you ever last visited a school in a rural area? Just one day, take a drive and visit a school. They will allow you sit in one classroom, maybe in Magoya along the road or in Kalomo, and see what goes on in terms of textbooks. They are not there. And USAID used to help a little bit. Now they are gone. But we have not adjusted the money we give to the ministry. This is the key to all the ministries we have. I don't know whether you see. I'm saying for Zambia to move forward, and this is why maybe this government gave free education to try and help. But even when they say free education, it's not free. The government pays. It needs money. We pay through CDF in that package. Somebody has to pay, and it's the government. So we really need this ministry. At least what are you doing to have each learner a textbook? And these textbooks are just 30 pages, 24 pages. Why are we failing to have these textbooks for each and every learner? Some countries provide a laptop from the government for each learner. In Rwanda in particular, every learner, foundation learning, is given a laptop. And that way they are able to become innovative. But we're just talking of textbooks here. What are you doing to make sure that you give in finances that at least one area we can say learning materials done at foundation learning? It is not fair for a parent to be waking up a kid going for 5 years and they can't write even 1 or 4. But they are there. This is the reality. They go home every day. Why? Not because they are down. There's nobody who is down. Our parents are able to educate, to teach these children when they are born. They can't walk, they can't run. They teach them how to walk at home. And they're able to speak, to talk later on. Even able to go to school. But the school fails because we don't have these materials. But even 20% is talking about, we are unable to allocate. We allocate 15%. And so that's the situation where we are. I think we want you to comment on this, and that's why I took you through on what really happens on the ground. What we are doing for that small young man, hoping this country can make him a better citizen or her. So may you take us through your answers. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair, for that passionate illustration of the challenge on the ground. And indeed, we also acknowledge that it's something that, as a country, it's a problem that we need to deal with. I would attempt to respond to the questions, and then where appropriate, maybe my colleagues can add 1 or 2 points. Starting with the budget allocation first, with the issue of %. Why are we not at 20%? We're very low compared to our target. We do acknowledge that we could do better, but I think the issue has been, again, where we're coming from. I think the desire is there. I don't think it's an issue of not wanting to. The desire is there, but it's more about looking at the resources that we have versus the demands that we have. And now to balance that act when we are coming out of a situation where all the resources were going into servicing debt, we found ourselves where our developmental envelope was very small. And that's not an excuse. I think the idea from where we sit is to enhance our revenues. As we enhance our revenues, we are committed to making sure that we allocate enough resources as indicated in our commitments. Chair, you may wish to recall that much of these targets are things that Zambia is a signatory to. So being a signatory to these commitments, meaning that we believe in them. So it's an issue of why are we not getting there? And one of the problems is the envelope itself is so small. You know, when you have 20%, 13% of $50 billion, for example, is a very big amount of money versus 20% of $1 billion. So if from where we are, because of the envelope is so small, that if you try to take to 20% of the budget that we have now, you find that there's literally nothing else that is left. So the idea is to grow our revenues to a point where even when you take 20% of that budget, there's still enough money to still deal with other challenges that we have. So what the key is to grow the envelope. We have acknowledged that, and I think we continue.
But this year you went down from what you gave the other year. I think it's for me, sometimes we get out, because I was shocked when I went to observe. And that's why I told you, maybe when I went to observe in my constituency, sat the whole day to observe one catch-up class. I was shocked what I found. So sometimes we get out of touch. Maybe our children go to schools in town. We talked about disparities. Some of our children go to private schools. And about that government kid that wears his uniform and gets a bag from a plastic bag, goes to school, how does he learn without textbooks? I think especially that the curriculum changed, in my view, and we knew there was a change over the curriculum, and then there'll be need for more textbook, different ones. I think we should have given them a little bit more money, but instead, education got less within that small envelope. And yet you are bringing a huge change. Huge change. But the money did not reflect that. It was like the way it has been happening.
Chair, we've taken note and we'll continue to do better. We will do better in 2027. That's our commitment.
Okay.
There was a question on the challenge, which is textbooks in local languages, to say that maybe there'll be some need for extra resources to help Ministry of Education to produce those. That is something that is possible through a supplemental budget. I don't know if this year it will be possible, given that Parliament rises when in May. But the idea is if a supplemental can come in, because it's all about what you already approved in the budget.
You can call us. We'll still be members of Parliament up to August. You can call us.
Sure.
We can gladly come.
Sure. So it would require a supplemental request, and if that is issued by yourselves, I think that is something that's possible.
Yeah, but I wanted you to understand. Yeah. When I will come as well. I wanted you to understand that now the syllabus, they are teaching it in vernacular, and then there are no textbooks. You understand how grave it is? So they are teaching in private schools. Yes, they can use English, but in all these government schools, from ECE to grade 4, they are using vernacular, and then there are no textbooks because there are no people that did the bidding. The ministry doesn't seem to have money for that. So how do we get going then?
It's something that we are taking back to the office to look at. Again, the key solution is a supplemental funding to look at it, but we will start engaging Ministry of Education to see how maybe we can start responding to that challenge that is there.
Chair, thank you very much. Ministry of Finance, we really appreciate your submission. Suffice to say that I've noted a very, very important discrepancy in the 2026 budget vis-a-vis the budget for 2015, where the reduction is so astronomical. And looking at the need and what many people who came to submit before this very important committee, were indicating the need of increasing the books at that level. Now, with this reduction, don't you think that what we desire will not be achieved, looking at the amount of money, because everything stops at funding. If there is no funding, there is nothing that we can be able to do. So basically we are talking about increasing the books at that level, and then there is a reduction of funding. How best can we be able to deal with that situation? Thank you.
Just to make sure. I think you are referring to this page, this document. Yes. We will look at that, but I think much of the decrease there, if you look at the paragraph right below the table, it says the decrease was mainly due to a reduction in the allocation for personal emoluments. So it was not on the materials, but it was on personal emoluments. But that being said, I think the message is clear that there's need to allocate more resources to materials for teaching, especially at this level, especially in vernacular. So we just need to engage our sister ministry, Ministry of Education, so that maybe this is something that we already start discussing now as we consider any supplemental funding to support that and all the challenges that they may have under this.
Yeah, but you are saying human resource plays a bigger role. So maybe you need a driver to be driving them, to employ, to take them to all this, to do research. You can't employ a driver, you are stuck. Maybe you need to buy another, enumeration, maybe you need another human resource that has got the knowledge you need to beef up on what you are doing. So really, whichever way, I think it's a question of which part is more important on the body. Is it the nose or the mouth or the eyes? I think each part plays an important role. So if you don't have the eyes, you're stuck. If you close your nose, you might end up not breathing. So it's that kind of stuff. Really. I think, like we're putting it, it's very important that we can at least have the textbook so that we kick. The syllabus is a very good one. It's a very good one. And if you go and do even the assessment of not only foundation and even all these other levels, I think it's a very good syllabus, but we're making a huge change that requires money so that it can take off.
Chair, I think the message is clear.
Yeah.
The message is clear,
okay.
And we'll take this back with us, especially as we look at, one, the development of the 9th National Development Plan. We need to make sure that the targets are reflective of the intention of improvement. We need to have ambitious targets in there, whether it's the ratios, so that indeed we achieve the necessary goal. We have taken note of your guidance and your observation that really to develop, we start with human development. And so those indicators will place very critical focus on them as we also prepare the budget for 2027 to make sure that, again, pull the budget as close as possible towards the desired targets. Of course, it all depends on the resources that we will have and other competing factors, but I think education is important, and it's clear that human capital development is important. Government has continued putting resources towards social sectors, education and health, and other sectors. So I think it's consistent with what we're trying to do, but I think we are thanking the committee for the observations that have been made, because it will further refocus and reprioritize our thinking around this issue as we go forward. I don't know if my colleagues have anything else to add to what I've said. If so, please feel free.
The lady hasn't spoken. I want to hear her voice. We have put more women in parliament. We want them to talk. You can say one or two things. You have nothing to say. You agree to what all men here have said. Whenever mute, and last question, we wind up.
I think just in line with what the acting PS is saying, the reductions here, for example, teacher education and specialized services, it has gone to almost, it could be half, from 142 to 74. Meanwhile, they are saying the distance learning and teacher education and specialized services have been allocated and subsect will continue to ensure that teachers are well trained and have the requisite skills to sustainably improve learning outcomes. So with these reductions, these comments will not be effective. Yes.
Any last word?
We have taken note of the submissions by the honorable members of the committee and yourself, Chair. These are the desk officers that do the crunching of the numbers. So I think we'll go back and do our homework so that at the time that we start engaging with the Ministry of Education, that challenge function where we challenge them to prioritize the right things, we'll factor this in so that we are also seeing that, of course, we can only recommend, but the final say is that of the parent ministry, which is the Ministry of Education. But I think we will be aligned to the fact that we need to prioritize production of materials that are responding to the new curriculum and syllabuses. With that, I think, unless if my colleagues have anything else to say. Otherwise, thank you for inviting us, Chair.
Yeah, no, sir. I think, just as you know, it is the Ministry of Education that has got free, and why we made free education is we want to improve the human resource. The best gift you can leave to your children is not the number of cars. No. Those will be out of, they would they would depreciate. You know, you're an economist, I want to believe so. So the best gift you can leave your children is education. Yeah. These are the things that will finish and vanish. And so that's why we must all look at what Africa, why does Africa have this problem that we have? You know, it's like we have maize. Maize is around and you don't know how to cook it and you are starving. You know, you are in a river, you can't drink the water. So we need to add value to our materials. It's a high time we stopped letting out our materials going to all over this Europe for free. And yet we can add value, create more employment and improve the quality of life. But for us to do that, we need to invest in the human resource. And that's why I think the president of the country is emphasizing on education, that even the poor man's child must have a chunk in the education. And our job is to provide the necessary materials they need. At least let's give them textbooks, let's give the teachers teaching aids, which cost money. Yeah, so I thought I should do. We're very grateful that we have had this engagement with you, because as we go down to observe, we know what is there. Sometimes we are too busy adding figures in your offices, and we need to remind you what is important here. So, Minister of Finance, we are very, very happy that you came, and thank you very much for submission and for your time. Please extend this message to the people in the ministry there, so that they are aware of what is really on the ground. Speak on our behalf. Now that we've come to an end, I now remove Cap 12. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Chair.
Well, thank you for still being with us on Parliament Television. And you're just from watching a live broadcast of the Committee on Education, Science and Technology, in which the Ministry of Finance and National Planning is just from making a submission that on the subject under consideration, reviewing the state of foundational literacy and numeracy levels in primary schools. We continue bringing you various parliamentary committees that are sitting here at Parliament, and later in the afternoon we will have the Committee on Cabinet Affairs. But I would also urge you to follow Parliament Radio, as it is also broadcasting some of the committees that are sitting and receiving submissions at Mulungushi Conference Center. Keep watching Parliament Television.